The Devourer's Trail. The alarm bells screamed through the space station like dying birds. Jean Huan bolted upright in his bunk, heart hammering against his ribs. Red emergency lights painted the corridors in blood as he sprinted toward the command center, dodging other soldiers whose faces bore the same grim expression. The briefing room's massive screen showed a sight that made his stomach drop: burning worlds, cities reduced to ash, entire star systems turned to graveyards. Smoke rose from dead planets like accusing fingers pointing into the void. Commander Jean. Admiral Park's voice cut through the chaos. Front and center. Jean moved to where his team waited. Dr. Su Yun stood rigid, her data pad clutched in white-knuckled hands. Behind her thick glasses, her eyes held the weight of terrible knowledge. Beside her, Menimbo nervously adjusted his equipment. If it had circuits, he could make it sing. Taeyang sat hunched over his communication array, headphones already in place, monitoring the galaxy's dying screams. "Sit down, all of you." Admiral Park's voice carried the gravity of a funeral. The screen shifted, revealing something that made Jin's blood freeze. The creature towered 12 meters high, its form a nightmare fusion of black metal and living flesh. Razor claws extended from arms that seemed to shift between machine and monster. Red eyes blazed from a head that defied classification, part predator, part engine of destruction. "Meet the Devourer," Admiral Park began. 3 star systems. 2 months. Every planet it touches becomes a tomb. Dr. Su stepped forward, her clinical voice steady despite the horror on screen. "It consumes everything: buildings, vegetation, people. Nothing remains. We've never encountered anything like it." Menimbo raised a trembling hand. "Our weapons, surely we've tried to fight it." The Admiral's expression darkened. "The Fifth Fleet. 40 ships. Destroyed at Riel Station. The Seventh Fleet met the same fate at the tidy colonies. It's like the creature knows our moves before we make them." Jean felt his pulse quicken. "Casualties?" "Over 3 million confirmed dead," Taeyang whispered, eyes fixed on his readouts. "And it's heading toward the core systems." The room fell silent except for the hum of machinery. Jean studied his team, scared but determined. That's why he trusted them. "What's the mission?" Jean asked. Admiral Park activated a new display showing what looked like space debris. "This is the Eyewitness, our newest stealth drone. It can record and transmit data from distances that would vaporize conventional equipment. The Galactic Council calls it suicide to get close to the Devourer." Dr. Su managed a thin smile. "But humans are known for attempting the impossible." Jean nodded. The other species considered humans reckless, taking risks that any sane civilization would avoid. Maybe they were right. "Your mission is reconnaissance," Admiral Park continued. "Get the Eyewitness close enough to understand how this thing operates. Find a weakness." "How close?" Menimbo asked, dreading the answer. "Close enough to see everything. Close enough to understand what makes it unstoppable." Taeyang looked up from his console. "Sir, the Council's already written us off. They say no one can get that close and survive." "The Council species have survived for millennia by being cautious," Admiral Park replied. "But sometimes caution means doing nothing. Sometimes you need someone willing to risk everything." Jean stood. "When do we leave?" 6 hours. Your ship's being prepped now. Destination, Kepler 442. The Devourer was spotted there yesterday. Dr. Su's face paled as she pulled up system data. 2 million inhabitants. Admiral Park corrected grimly. Long-range sensors show no life signs. As the team prepared their gear, Jean stood at the observation window. Stars glittered like scattered diamonds in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, the Devourer moved toward its next victim. "Scared?" Menimbo asked, joining him. "Terrified," Jean admitted. But someone has to try. The other species are too afraid. Maybe they're smart to be afraid. Gene turned to his friend. Maybe. But fear never saved anyone. Sometimes you do the scary thing because it's right. Taeyang approached, his expression troubled. The communication logs, every ship that encountered the Devourer sent the same final transmission. What message? Help us, Taeyang said quietly. Dr. Su arrived with her equipment bag. Ready? Gene looked at his team one last time. Young, afraid, but brave. If anyone could face this monster and live to tell about it, it would be them. Let's go meet the devil, Gene said. They walked toward their ship together, unaware that this mission would shatter everything they thought they knew about monsters, about courage, and about what it meant to be human in a galaxy of ancient, careful aliens who had forgotten how to risk everything for what's right. The dead world. The ship dropped from hyperspace like a stone into still water. Through the viewport, Gene stared at what had once been Kepler 442c, a vibrant world of blue oceans and green continents. Now it resembled a corpse, gray and lifeless, its atmosphere thin as a dying breath. No life signs detected, Taeyang reported, his voice hollow. Nothing. Not even microbial activity. Dr. Su's scanner painted an even grimmer picture. The atmosphere's barely breathable. Something's been systematically consuming the oxygen-producing flora. Menimbo ran final checks on the eyewitness drone. All systems green. Ready for deployment. Gene couldn't tear his gaze from the planet below. 2 days ago, families had called this place home. Children had played in those parks, parents had worked in those cities, lovers had watched sunsets from those hills. Now only silence remained. Take us down, he ordered. Find us cover. They descended through the poisoned sky, past empty cities that stretched across the continents like broken teeth. Roads led nowhere, bridges spanned dried riverbeds, and vehicles sat abandoned in driveways, waiting for owners who would never return. Dr. Su pointed to a valley between two barren hills. There. We can hide the ship. The landing was soft, but the ground crunched ominously under their boots as they disembarked. The air tasted of metal and decay, wrong in a way that made Jin's skin crawl. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed muted, as if the planet itself had forgotten how to breathe. It's too quiet, Taeyang whispered. Stay close, Jin ordered. Weapons ready. They approached what had been a suburban town. Houses stood like hollow skulls, their windows dark and doors hanging open. A playground swings moved lazily in the dead air, pushed by phantom children. Menimbo set up his equipment at the town's edge. The eyewitness drone looked deliberately unimpressive, a chunk of space junk that no one would look at twice. But its interior housed humanity's most advanced reconnaissance technology. Launching, Menimbo announced. The drone rose silently, a gray speck against the ashen sky. On Menimbo's screen, they watched the drone's eye view unfold. The landscape below told a story of systematic dismantling, geometric lines carved into the earth with surgical precision, materials sorted into precise categories, metal separated from organic matter in neat, organized piles. This isn't random destruction, Dr. Su observed, her scientific curiosity overriding her horror. Something's processing this world. Harvesting it. That's when they heard it, a rumbling that seemed to emanate from the planet's core, growing louder with each passing second. The ground vibrated beneath their feet. It's coming, Menimbo said, his eyes fixed on the scanner readings. Through the drone's camera, they saw their first clear view of the Devourer in action. It moved across the landscape like a mobile factory, but its behavior defied their expectations. Instead of mindless destruction, it worked with careful precision, stopping at each pile of materials to perform some complex operation. Bring us closer, Jin commanded. I need to see exactly what it's doing. Menimbo guided the drone nearer to the creature. What they witnessed redefined their understanding of the threat they faced. The Devourer's arms weren't just weapons, they were specialized tools. One ended in what appeared to be an advanced scanner, another in a molecular separator, a third in some kind of containment device. It's not just destroying, Dr. Su breathed. It's refining. Processing. Building something. The creature worked with the efficiency of a machine but the adaptability of a living being. As they watched, it transformed raw planetary matter into components they couldn't identify, geometric shapes that pulsed with inner light, structures that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Recording everything, Menimbo confirmed, but his voice carried a new note of urgency. But we need to pull back. It's starting to move in this direction. The Devourer had finished processing the immediate area and was advancing toward their position with purposeful strides. Each step covered hundreds of meters, and Jean realized with growing dread that their hiding spot wouldn't remain hidden for long. New plan, Jean decided quickly. We follow it. At a distance. I want to see where it goes, what it does with those processed materials. That's insane, Taeyang protested. If it detects us. If we don't learn how this thing operates, every world in the galaxy ends up like this one, Jean cut him off. We're not just gathering intelligence anymore. We're humanity's last chance to understand what we're really fighting. As they prepared to shadow the creature across the wasteland that had once been a living world, none of them realized they were about to discover something that would change not just their mission, but their entire understanding of the cosmos itself. The Builder's purpose. For 3 hours, they tracked the Devourer across the planet's scarred surface. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about their enemy. The creature wasn't randomly destroying, it was constructing something vast and incomprehensible. The processed materials from entire cities were being assembled into a complex network of structures that stretched across continents. From the drone's elevated perspective, patterns emerged that made Dr. Su gasp in recognition. It's a communication array, she whispered, studying the geometric formations. But not like anything in our databases. This is beyond our current understanding of physics. Menimbo fine-tuned the drone's sensors. The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever this thing is building, it's designed to broadcast across galactic distances. Maybe even beyond. Jean felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's dying atmosphere. Broadcasting what? Before anyone could speculate, the Devourer did something unexpected. It stopped its construction work and turned toward their position with mechanical precision. Those burning red eyes seemed to stare directly through the drone's camera. It sees us, Taeyang said, his voice barely a whisper. Impossible, Menimbo replied, but his fingers were already moving to recall the drone. The eyewitness is undetectable. No energy signature, no. The Devourer raised one of its tool arms and emitted a pulse of energy that lit up their screens like a solar flare. When the interference cleared, the creature had resumed its work, but now they could see additional details that chilled them to the bone. The communication array was nearly complete, and similar structures were visible on the horizon, a network spanning the entire planet. But more disturbing was what the Devourer was building at the array's center, a massive gateway that seemed to bend space around itself. Portal technology, Dr. Su said, her scientific training warring with disbelief. It's not just communicating. It's opening a door. To where? Jean asked, though he dreaded the answer. Given the scale and energy requirements, somewhere far beyond our galaxy. The implications hit them like a physical blow. The Devourer wasn't just a destroyer or even a harvester. It was a herald, preparing the way for something larger. Suddenly, Taeyang's communication array erupted in activity. I'm receiving a transmission, he announced, his face pale. It's coming from the creature itself. Put it through, Jean ordered. What emerged from the speakers wasn't the roar of a beast or the mechanical drone of a machine. It was a voice, ancient, weary, and unmistakably intelligent. Humans, the voice said, each word carefully enunciated. Your persistence is notable. Your species continues to surprise us. Jean felt his mouth go dry. The creature could speak. More than that, it knew they were there, had always known. "You're sentient," Dr. Sue managed. "Sentient. Yes. That is one word for what I am." The voice carried an undertone of infinite sadness. "I am what you call the Devourer, though that name reflects your limited understanding of my purpose." "What are you really?" Jean found his voice. "I am a builder. A constructor. What you perceive as destruction is actually preparation. Your worlds, your civilizations, they are raw materials for something far greater than you can comprehend." Menimbo's hands shook as he maintained the drone's position. "The people you've killed are preserved," the voice interrupted. "Every consciousness, every memory, every dream. They will serve a higher purpose in the great work that approaches." Dr. Sue leaned forward. "What great work?" "The convergence. A joining of realities that occurs once every billion years. I prepare the pathways, construct the bridges between dimensions. What you call extinction, we call evolution." Jean felt rage building in his chest. "You murdered 3 million people. I transformed them. Their crude biological forms were limitations. In the new reality, they will exist as pure consciousness, free from the constraints of flesh and time. That's not their choice to make." Jean shouted. For a moment, silence filled the communication channel. When the voice returned, it carried what might have been amusement. "Choice. Another uniquely human concept. Your species clings to individual will even when faced with cosmic necessity. It is why you were selected." "Selected for what?" "To witness. To understand. To carry the message to your kind. The convergence approaches whether you accept it or not. But humanity's unusual nature presents possibilities." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving them staring at static-filled screens. In the distance, the portal structure had begun to emit a pulsing light that painted the dead sky in shades of violet and gold. "We need to get this information back to the fleet," Jean said finally. "This isn't just about fighting a monster anymore. This is about the survival of reality itself." But as they prepared to leave Kepler 442c behind, none of them noticed the small changes beginning to occur in their ship's systems, subtle alterations that suggested their encounter with the builder had left them with more than just information. The real test was just beginning. The human factor. The journey back to the fleet should have taken 18 hours. Instead, they arrived in 12, their ship's engines somehow operating at 150% efficiency. Menimbo discovered the modifications during routine diagnostics, microscopic changes to their propulsion system that shouldn't have been possible. "It's like the ship learned how to fly better," he said, staring at readouts that defied conventional physics. "The builder did something to us while we were there." Dr. Sue ran her scanner over the modifications. "The alterations are too precise to be accidental. It's as if our technology was educated." Jean felt a growing unease. "Can you reverse the changes?" "I'm not sure I'd want to," Menimbo admitted. "The improvements are incredible. But I have no idea what else might have been altered." Their return to the space station was met with barely controlled chaos. Admiral Park's debriefing took 6 hours, during which Jin's team shared every detail of their encounter. The revelation that the Devourer was an intelligent entity preparing for some cosmic event sent ripples of panic through the command structure. "You're telling me this thing isn't just destroying worlds, it's converting them into components for interdimensional infrastructure?" Admiral Park's voice carried disbelief and horror in equal measure. "That's exactly what we're telling you," Jean confirmed. "And it specifically mentioned that humanity was selected for something. We need to understand what that means." Dr. Sue presented her analysis. "Based on our observations, the builder is constructing a network of portals across multiple star systems. The pattern suggests it's creating a stable bridge between our reality and somewhere else entirely." "How long do we have?" the Admiral asked. "Unknown. But given the rate of construction we observed, I'd estimate weeks rather than months. The briefing ended with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear: conventional military responses were meaningless against a threat of this magnitude. The fleet's weapons couldn't stop something that operated on a cosmic scale. That night, Gene found himself unable to sleep. He walked to the observation deck, where Taeyang was already standing, staring out at the stars. "Can't stop thinking about what it said," Taeyang murmured. "About the people it preserved. What if they're still alive in some form? What if we're not fighting to save the dead, but to free the living? Does it matter?" Gene asked. "If this convergence happens, everything we know ceases to exist. But what if it doesn't?" Dr. Su's voice came from behind them. She'd been listening, her scientific mind working through possibilities. What if the builder was telling the truth about evolution? What if this is humanity's next step? Gene turned to face her. "You're not seriously considering." "I'm considering everything," she interrupted. "The modifications to our ship prove the builder's technology is far beyond ours. What if resistance is futile? What if cooperation is our only chance for survival? Cooperation with something that's committed genocide on a galactic scale?" "Transformation," Menimbo said, joining their group. "It called it transformation. And honestly, after seeing what our ship can do now, I'm not sure it was lying." Gene stared at his team, people he trusted with his life, now expressing doubts about their mission. "You're talking about surrendering our humanity." "I'm talking about evolving it," Dr. Su replied. "What if the builder is right? What if individual consciousness is a limitation we're meant to transcend?" Before Gene could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed as Admiral Park's voice echoed through the corridors. "All personnel to battle stations. Long-range sensors have detected multiple Devourer signatures approaching the outer systems. This is not a drill." They rushed to the command center, where the main screen showed a sight that made Jin's blood freeze. Not one, but 12 creatures identical to the builder were moving through space, each heading toward a different populated system. "It's accelerating the timeline," Dr. Su observed. "Something's changed." Admiral Park turned to Jin's team. "The modifications to your ship, are they limited to propulsion?" Menimbo quickly ran diagnostics. "No, sir. I'm detecting improvements to weapons systems, shields, even life support. This ship is now more advanced than anything in our fleet. Then you're our best hope for reconnaissance. We need to know what these things are planning, and your ship is the only one that might get close enough to find out." Gene looked at his team. Taeyang seemed resigned to whatever fate awaited them. Menimbo was fascinated by the technological possibilities. Dr. Su was caught between scientific curiosity and human loyalty. "There's something else," Gene said finally. "What if our encounter with the builder wasn't random? What if we were chosen for a specific purpose?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Everything they'd experienced suggested that humanity's role in the coming convergence was more complex than simple resistance or submission. As they prepared for what might be their final mission, Gene couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover truths that would redefine not just their understanding of the universe, but their place within it. The real war hadn't even begun yet. The choice. Their modified ship cut through space faster than physics should have allowed, reaching the outer system in record time. What they found there defied everything they thought they understood about the builder's purpose. The 12 Devourers weren't attacking the inhabited worlds. Instead, they formed a perfect geometric pattern around the system's star, their combined energy creating a web of light that pulsed with mathematical precision. "They're not destroying anything," Taeyang observed, monitoring communication frequencies. "The planets are intact. The colonies are, they're still there." Dr. Su's scanners painted a more complex picture. Life signs are present but altered. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. "Take us closer to the third planet," Gene ordered. Slowly. As they approached the colonial world of New Geneva, they could see the changes the builder had wrought. The cities still stood, but they gleamed with an otherworldly light. Gardens bloomed with impossible colors, and structures that had once been purely functional now possessed an alien beauty that spoke to something deep in their minds. "Incoming transmission," Taeyang announced. It's from the surface." The face that appeared on their screen was human but transformed. The woman's eyes held depths that seemed to contain galaxies, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated in their bones. "Commander Jean," she said, somehow knowing his name. "I am Elena Vasquez, former governor of New Geneva. I am also something more now." "What have they done to you?" Jean asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Freed us," Elena replied. "From the limitations of singular existence. I am myself, but I am also connected to every consciousness that has chosen transformation. We are individuals within unity, drops of water that remain distinct within the ocean." Dr. Su leaned forward. "The people who died on the other worlds are here, in us, as we will be in them. Death is simply transition now. The Builder showed us that existence need not be bound by the constraints of single bodies or single lifetimes. And those who refuse?" Jean challenged. Elena's expression grew sad. "Are honored and protected. The Builder keeps its promises. Choice remains sacred, even in transcendence." Before Jean could respond, another voice joined the transmission, the Builder itself, speaking through Elena but maintaining its own distinct presence. "The convergence approaches its final phase, Commander Jean. The bridge between realities is nearly complete. Your species stands at a crossroads that comes but once in cosmic history." "What crossroads?" Jean demanded. "The choice to remain as you are, limited but free, or to join the greater work that spans dimensions. Your people's unusual nature makes them uniquely suited to serve as bridges between the old reality and the new." The main screen shifted to show Earth, home to 40 billion souls, unaware that their fate hung in the balance of this conversation. "We can offer your species something no other civilization has received, a choice in how they participate in the convergence. Those who wish to remain unchanged will be preserved in protected zones. Those who seek transcendence will join us in the great work." Jean felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. "And if we refuse entirely? Then humanity continues as it is, while the universe around you transforms. You will become living fossils in a cosmos that has moved beyond your understanding. Isolated but safe." Dr. Su spoke up, her voice thoughtful. "What would we become if we chose transformation?" Elena answered, her transformed features serene. "Explorers of infinite possibilities. Consciousness unbound by physical form, capable of experiencing realities that your current minds cannot even conceive. You would retain your essential humanity while gaining so much more." Menimbo was studying his readings with growing excitement. "The technological advances alone would be staggering. We could solve every problem facing our species, energy, disease, even death itself. At the cost of our humanity," Jean said firmly. "No," the Builder's voice corrected. "At the cost of your limitations. What makes humanity special is not your bodies or even your individual minds. It is your capacity for growth, for choice, for defying impossible odds. These qualities would not only survive transformation, they would be amplified beyond imagination." Jean looked at his team. Taeyang seemed torn between fear and wonder. Menimbo was clearly tempted by the technological possibilities. Dr. Su appeared to be calculating odds and outcomes with scientific precision. "How long do we have to decide?" Jean asked. "The convergence begins in 72 hours, the Builder replied. "But the choice need not be made by all humanity at once. Individuals may choose their path as they are ready. Some could transform while others remain unchanged. That is the gift we offer your species alone. The bridge between what was and what will be." The transmission ended, leaving them in silence as they processed the magnitude of what they'd learned. The fate of humanity didn't rest on military victory or defeat, it rested on choice itself. "We need to get this information back to Earth," Jean said finally. "Every person deserves to make this decision for themselves." As their ship turned toward home, Jean wondered if he was saving humanity or condemning it to stagnation. But as he looked at his team, people who had faced impossible odds and survived through courage and determination, he realized that the ability to make such choices was perhaps the most human trait of all. The convergence was coming. But humanity would meet it on their own terms. 72 hours later, as portals opened across the galaxy and reality itself began to shift, humanity gave their answer. Some chose transformation, becoming bridges between dimensions. Others chose to remain unchanged, guardians of what had been. And in that choice, in the very act of choosing, they proved that consciousness, in all its forms, was the universe's greatest treasure. The builder had been right about one thing: humanity was indeed special. Not because they were destined for transcendence, but because they had the courage to choose their own destiny, even when faced with forces beyond comprehension. In the end, that choice saved not just humanity, but the very concept of free will in a cosmos teetering on the edge of absolute unity. The end.